Before we begin, I have a confession. A few weeks ago, I interviewed the Sandbris brothers about their film I Am Frankelda. I plan to include the interview and my usual movie analysis in the video. But then I noticed something interesting happening around I Am Frankelda. Many supported the film online, including Guillermo del Toro, highlighting its Mexican production and urging support. Another group felt attacked by the situation as they preferred seeing the Chainsaw Man movie. A debate began on social media about the importance of supporting Mexican cinema. This made me realize that animation in Mexico is far more interesting and extends beyond Soy Frankelda. So I decided to research this topic thoroughly. That's why I interviewed several people in the animation industry to understand its current state in Mexico. What are its main challenges? Most importantly, what awaits young people pursuing this? This was when I realized this wasn't just any video for me. I don't even want to record it here. Here's the confession. Once I began making the video, I realized my personal reasons for researching the topic made it especially interesting. I'll share more later. So my name is Go the Monitor Geek, and today we're going to take Mexican animation very seriously. The Monitor Geek. Soy Frankelda has become a major media phenomenon in Mexico, with widespread coverage from media outlets and content creators. Even Cinépolis, one of the country's largest theater chains, has heavily promoted it on social media. By now, I think we Mexicans already know about the movie. Our family saw it on opening weekend, and I found several interesting things. I'm Frankelda is a stop-motion film about Francisca Imelda, a 19th century woman who dreams of becoming a famous horror writer. However, to do so, no. She has to face her own insecurities first, the stereotypes of her time, and then several creatures from a distant realm. With the Prince of Scares Ernebal's help... What the hell was that?
I'm not sure what happened. Maybe a bug. But it doesn't matter. Go on.
What caught my attention the most about Soy Frankelda is that it doesn't feel like a Disney or DreamWorks movie or like those other big animation companies. Instead, it feels like something different. Not just because of the aesthetics, which take a lot from Mexican culture, but also because of the theme and this darker way of approaching what could be a fairy tale. This immediately reminded me of a childhood favorite series, The Storyteller.
The main inspiration comes from the storyteller Jim Henson and his other productions. Labyrinth, The Dark Crystal, The Lord of the Rings, and Harry Potter all share many influences. Like trying to create this imaginary or fantasy world that we felt we weren't seeing much in Mexican cinema.
Its universe borrows much from these productions. For instance, Frankelda's Los Sustos Ocultos features dark, brief stories with moral lessons and unhappy endings, similar to classic fairy tales. Very talented, creative people here are doubting themselves and their abilities. We often see them struggle to fit into a society where they feel they don't belong. This is on the fairy tale side, but as the Sandbris mentioned, the universe also has touches of worlds like Harry Potter or The Lord of the Rings. Since both in the movie and in the series, we can see that each character has a lore or a story behind them. For example, the series, despite being presented as an anthology of short and independent stories, manages from the very beginning to give us small hints through certain dialogues that there is a whole lore behind Frankelda. We saw this in more detail in the last episode, which presents her and Ernebal's story. Right, isn't it? And
wait, the fans' response was amazing. They got really into it. With the last episode where we show a bit of Frankelda's life with Ernebal, well, that was the episode people liked the most. So when we talked about what was next, it was clear that we had to continue with Frankelda and Ernebal's story, and that the best format to do it was a movie.
The same occurs with the movie Soy Frankelda. When you watch it, you get the impression that several of these characters have a whole backstory that isn't shown, which makes you feel like you're only seeing one story that takes place in a much bigger world. This is risky, but before I explain, the Sandbris brothers shared something interesting with me. You know Ernebal this way, but originally he didn't look like this when...
We created Ernebal, who appears in the Frankelda pilot, and he was more devil-like.
You can still see his original form in the 2019 promo video for the hidden scares of Frankelda. Why did they change him?
Why? Buona said, showing a devil could be an issue due to religious connotations, difficulty entering some territories, and because it's very cliché.
And personally, I also feel that it was the right decision. Not just because pop culture already has many demon interpretations, but also, as Warner mentioned, This demon figure already has a very strong cultural connotation, and it's negative for many people, particularly within certain religions. And
That's where the idea came from, to make it more like a feathered demon, more like a Mexican owl. A
creature that Mexicans culturally link to mystery and superstition, since its figure and its song are linked to death, the supernatural, and bad omens. There's even a popular saying that goes, when the owl sings, the Indian dies. That's why making Herneval an owl. It was more than an aesthetic change. It also symbolized a deeper connection to our country's legends, fears, and traditions. Besides, just look at how it turned out. Ultimately, it feels like an ambitious story trying to surpass the movie and series. Not only that, but it also feels like something more complex than what we usually see. Does it give you the feeling that you have to watch the movie more than once to really get everything, because some things kind of remain up in the air? And from what I've been told, that was the intention. Also,
Yeah, we live in a time where people are relying a lot on formulas, and I feel like sometimes that's getting lost. The great thing is, not everything is handed to you digitally or made too easy, my friend. For us, cinema is much more than that. It's emotions, it's subtleties. It's about not having everything handed to you, so you end up thinking and can come up with your own series. Those are the movies we like best.
however, this can be risky since some people may not want to commit to an unfamiliar franchise, especially regarding a Mexican production. I think the moment I decided to change the focus of my video was after watching the interview that Gabi Mesa did with the Zambris brothers, where they say that they had to invest their own money and even mortgage their assets to carry out their project. Since even though Warner had invested some money in the project, they had to come up with the rest of the investment. We
spent a lot of time looking for money for this movie and we couldn't find it. Everything relies on partnerships and finding people who want to join.
As someone who chose to study the arts, music in my case, I fully empathize with their situation. Often as creators, we must use our own resources to complete projects. In this case, we're discussing a production that already had a series behind it, that already had Warner as an investor with a lot of talent involved, and even had the wise advice of Guillermo del Toro. This made me wonder if a production like this, with these characteristics, struggled to get a budget. What is the state of animation in Mexico? When we talk about animation, we think that the United States has always been much further ahead than the rest of the countries, particularly the Latin ones. However, almost 20 years before Walt Disney made his first feature film, Snow White, the Argentine director Corino Cristiani made the first animated feature film in history. In 1917, a story of social criticism called El Apóstol. Unfortunately, every copy of the film was lost in a fire. Since 1935, Mexico developed its own animations, starting with shorts like Paco Perico, The Five Little Goats, and The Wolf, which was impressive for the time. Over the years, we created projects like the Cantinflas Show animated shorts and Mexican studios. They worked on American shows such as Underdog and The Rocky and Bullwinkle Show. However, it wasn't an organized industry as such, but rather isolated cases and efforts. Most importantly, there's nowhere to study animation in Mexico. Marvic Nunez, director of films like The Legend of the Shanex and The League of Five, told me about it.
At the end of the last century, well, there wasn't anything like that in the degree programs. You couldn't study animation as such. People who worked in animation back then, well, it was almost by accident. And for the most part, it was commercials, right?
This shifted early this century as studios like Huevo, Cartoon Producciones, and Anima Studios began creating original projects that resonated with audiences. Just like the case of the Las Leyendas franchise, which already holds a very special place in the hearts of the Mexican audience.
The movie La Nahuala, which is the first one, was really well received. It was a blessed movie because it was accepted, loved, and to this day, I think it's the number one of that legend saga. La Nahuala is the most beloved.
However, even these studios with big hits have faced productions that don't meet economic expectations. La Liga de los Cinco by Anima Studios adapts superhero movie elements to Mexican culture. Many other Mexican productions also face financial struggles like this one. In fact, if we take a look at the highest grossing Mexican animated productions of all time, we can notice that almost all of them belong to just two franchises, the Huevo Cartoon Universe and the Legends franchise. According to Canacin, Soy Frankelda has earned 32.9 million pesos as of recording. It hasn't reached the top 12 highest grossing animated movies yet, but it's close. But despite everything, it seems like there's a boom in the animation field in Mexico because there are many young people who want to study this. Just last week, I gave a talk on superhero history at the In Motion Fest. In Querétaro, the event director told me, in Querétaro, where I live, there are 14 universities that offer animation as a major, which I found impressive. Querétaro is small compared to major cities, making me realize many schools nationwide offer this major and have many graduates. Erica Zinser is the art director at Cloud 10 Studios. She has worked on movies such as The Wolf of Wall Street, Monsters University, and Tinkerbell, and has navigated the current job market. So she told me what it was like for her to get her first job.
I'm going to give you an opportunity to be an intern at my studio. But you're going to have to wash dishes, clean the bathrooms, clean the offices, the meeting rooms, because that's what an intern does. And I'm going to give you the opportunity to be in the meetings, to be in the movies, and to work with me.
This job eventually led to better opportunities in areas that suited her more, but it wasn't easy. Everyone has a starting point.
Erica Zinser now has major projects in animation, but
She told me a funny story from when she applied for a job at the company that made Club de Cuervos.
Alarraqui, the studio behind Club de Cuervos, Nosotros los Nobles, and similar films. They told me that concept art and visual development, which was what I was focusing on in animation, wasn't something they could use. But when Gary Alarraqui saw it was drawing, he asked, "Do you do storyboards?" I said yes. How hard could it be?
But
Erica didn't know that, in fact, making storyboards was more complicated than it seemed.
they called her and me for a meeting.
She says, "Welcome to the team, let's start storyboarding." And me? Like this. Connect your computer and your tablet to the screen behind you so we can start watching. Scene 1. A low-angle pan of the stadium, similar to the script with Dolin and its purpose.
Think.
Whose? What is that? But I can't ask. Can you see my screen? I can't Google it. Everyone was just like this.
I would have gotten super nervous. Well, I started.
To break it down in my head, I say, okay, panning. My phone can take panoramic photos, so it must be that. I began drawing, but he said no. I want it from a bird's eye view, from above, looking down. Now I understand. I'll start drawing it from above. Then he tells me, but mark Dolin for me, please. So I write Dolly in the corner, kind of misspelled. And he says, no, Dolly from the cart that's on the track, in and out. I'm not going to lie to you. By the 5th frame, he told me, you have no idea, do you? Honestly, no, I'm learning how to do something. He tells me, let's make a deal. I can't pay you or buy you a Coke, but I'll teach you what a storyboard is.
I'm not sure I could have handled this. It's competitive, so you have to act fast. Would you have done the same? Comment below. Fortunately, everything turned out well for Erica, and she is currently working on some projects where she is already on the other side. So she has had the opportunity to review several portfolios from people who want to work in animation. She told me the biggest problem she sees in people seeking jobs from her.
They make excuses. Before showing me their work, before showing me their demo reel, they make excuses. I'm telling you, I lack experience and I'm not the best right now. It's imposter syndrome. Before I can even see if their work meets the standard or not, they're already telling me up front that they know it's not good, that they're not a good candidate.
And there's also the other side. And
The other ones show me their demo reel, thinking they're amazing, but not even the format is correct. And the basics aren't even there. They're basically asking, so when do we start?
if you ever try to work in animation, other creators such as Ernesto Molina recently released his animation My Brother the Monster on Channel 11, who had to take a different path since he developed an entire independent project in Mexico facing several obstacles along the way. One is that Mexico's animation industry differs from the United States.
We tend to aspire to be like the people from Los Angeles, but unfortunately, you weren't born and we weren't born in an ecosystem like Hollywood, where, you sit down to work at Disney as a storyboard artist and you start to have a better opportunity to showcase your projects within the company and begin to connect with other executives and producers. So that you can go from being just a part of the animation machine to becoming a creator of animation.
My Brother the Monster is a Mexican animation airing on Channel 11. Here's the scoop on its cost and how the creator got funding. I'll let you know if it's profitable.
The nature of the production of My Brother the Monster is a miracle because it's the only series that was funded by economic incentives from Instituto Mexicano de Cinematografía. In its first and last program for fiction series, they never opened the doors of that program again to make series.
Instituto Mexicano de Cinematografía is a public organization that provides support for the production, distribution, and exhibition of Mexican audiovisual projects. It's a big help for audiovisual productions here, but it doesn't solve everything.
We managed to get that incentive from Instituto Mexicano de Cinematografía, which also required us to have a co-producer to provide the other half, maybe about 45% of the production's value, which my producer covered. Joe Alanis achieved this on many of his trips to international animation markets.
Now you have the money and the product, but what do you do next? You need to knock on doors and start selling. Either through a channel like my brother El Monstro on Channel 11 or a streaming service. Each one is different.
Open television is the one with the least funding for big purchases, you know? You know that you can't beat open television when it comes to the product buyout, but you're going to have an excess amount, a really huge amount.
That means an open television channel will probably open the doors to many more viewers. However, the pay will be much lower. How much less does a streaming service pay compared to an open television channel? Here you go.
It's abysmal. I mean, considering how much the series cost, which was around 35 to 45 million pesos, that's standard for a series of that length, in order to make a profit or recover what was invested in the series, I'd have to sell it to about 50 channels to recover everything I put into it. But if by pure luck, top-tier AAA streaming channels saw the product and said, you know what? Yeah, it's really good. Bring it over here. It's likely that with 3 or 4, I could make it. I could completely cover the costs of what it took to make it.
Do the math. That's not the only difference between working on an independent project and a project funded by a big company. As Ale Perez, who will premiere My Friend the Sun next year, the first Mexican animated feature film directed by a woman, also told me,
a big difference can be the budget, and along with that, the number of artists who can join the project.
Again, budget issues are evident in the project's staffing. But with cinema, distribution is also an issue.
Is the project done already? All the struggle paid off beautifully. It's amazing. So how does it reach the theaters? Well, you have to find a company because distribution, I think, covers things like how many theaters it's going to be in. Like all the marketing stuff, how we're going to sell it so people will go see it. Because a lot of times what happens is that people don't even find out. And
it's just that, just like making a movie, marketing also needs its own budget. Because, well, a great movie is useless if nobody knows about it, right? We should also note that these productions, being less well known, are shown in very few theaters nationwide. Because the chains prefer to give that space to other international movies that will probably sell more tickets. Which makes it even harder for people to go see these movies, and the creators know it.
We have to make sure it doesn't premiere at the same time as, I don't know, whatever Disney is releasing, whatever Pixar is releasing, right? Because obviously in that case...
But why? Independent animated films like Memories of a Snail or Flow, which lack Disney-level budgets. Did they achieve so much love and success with the Mexican audience? Meanwhile, our own animations struggle.
Stigmas that don't allow that to happen, you know? Not just in animation. When you hear Mexican cinema, there's usually some resistance or distance from Mexicans themselves, as if it were a separate genre.
Diego Olascuaga, Aztec Batman's art director, told me something similar and had the same issue.
It's kind of complicated, isn't it? Many people request Mexican content, but when you provide it with authentic roots, they say it's always the same. Sometimes they bring us projects like Coco from outside, right? Everyone criticizes it, yet we all go see it.
Our view of Mexican cinema isn't new. It's existed for years, and we're responsible for it.
Maybe as a film industry, we're paying the karma or the price or reaping what we've sown. With the huge decline that happened in Mexican cinema between the 70s and 80s, we had a time when our work was really good and we didn't have to envy other countries in terms of technique.
And let's remember that there was a golden age of Mexican cinema, when our movies were certainly on par with Hollywood productions. However, as the United States kept investing in technology and industry, Mexico began to lag behind. Beyond blame, biases, and perceptions, I believe this is the core issue. There is
a Disney movie, there's a movie from a Mexican studio. Which one do we watch? You have your money for your movie ticket, which isn't that cheap anymore either. What are you going to spend that money on? On a production they invested millions of dollars in? So, you know, it kind of has the reputation, the guarantee that you've liked other movies from that studio because it's super famous for years and years. Or are you going to spend your money to go see a Mexican animated movie just because support Mexican cinema?
You understand, people, since the ticket costs the same for everyone. This creates a vicious circle. If audiences think the offering isn't good, they won't spend money on movie tickets. If national animations don't perform well at the box office, there's less funding to improve productions and the industry overall. No.
It's not that there's a lack of incredible talent, but it's not a lack of money either. It's a lack of interest from investors, from production companies, and in general, from the people who can finance our projects.
How can we compete with giants like Disney? Part of the responsibility is clearly on the creators.
Competing isn't in our best interest since we're likely to lose on their playing field. Let's use this ball to create a new game. Let's invent another language, another aesthetic, another way of speaking to the audience.
There's also another part of the responsibility that's ours, and we can support national projects as much as possible. For example, if you like the movie, you can recommend it to your friends. If you didn't get to see a movie in theaters, maybe you can help by streaming it online. Or even details like interacting with the social media accounts of these projects can help support them. Right now, I'm speaking as a musician who once wanted to focus on making independent music. Trust me, it's complicated, but that's how the arts are. In general, I've never met anyone who goes into studying an art career with the goal of making money. You hope to make money, but you don't study art for that reason. Art, right? This topic is more personal for me. Arturo and Roy Ambris, directors of Soy Franquelda, have taught courses at Cinema Fantasma facilities on stop-motion scriptwriting or directing animated series. I took my son Adric to their course because he wanted to write stories. And after several courses and some advice from the Ambris, my son told me, "Dad, I want to dedicate myself to writing for animated series." Obviously, the moment every parent dreams of when your child tells you they're going to study arts, right? Jokes aside, I get it. I did the same to my parents. I studied architecture because my parents wouldn't let me study music at first. You know, the usual, you'll starve. Study a stable career first, then do that as a hobby. While staying up late for architecture school making terrible models, my heart just wasn't in it. I knew that wasn't the life I wanted for myself. At the same time, I understand that my parents were afraid of me becoming a musician because it was completely unfamiliar territory for them, something they didn't really understand. And I think something similar happened with my son because for a long time I thought he would study music. And well, I said, well, if that's the case, that's fine. I already more or less know how to guide him, how to lead him, but in this case with animation, honestly, I have no idea. So, I think this whole video has been my effort to try to understand this world and get a better idea of the landscape that my son and many other people are going to face. Fortunately, I found helpful advice that could benefit you too.
The tough part is you have to stick with it, man, because it'll take years of your life. You need a strong gut level desire where you can't imagine doing anything else, because that's the only way to endure the marathon ahead. Create an animation project.
The trick is to get in. This might sound really strange, but if you've seen the movie I was lucky enough to work on, Monsters University, they say at the end that there's always work hiring at the post office. A lot of people don't like to hear that they might have to be a kitchen assistant. Just to give you an example. Are you already at the Disney offices? They'll give you an opportunity then. It always happens. That was my case.
People who work on movies are very passionate people. And working on these kinds of projects is really the only opportunity many times that we have to do what we love. If I had
A wish-granting genie, that would be awesome. Oh, genie, give me a formula or something that inspires me to create a story that truly connects with many people. I think
That we're reaching a point where the audience itself is realizing what the animation industry is capable of right now. Imagine how much more it still has to grow.
But
It was achieved. So we hope that for the next movie or for the next filmmakers, it will be a little less difficult. Taking Soy Frankel as an example.
is it hard? I think so. But I've always thought that the job you love, that job you'd love to have, is a job that exists and that someone has. With effort, opportunities, and some luck, it could be yours too. If you only have one life and are passionate about something, why not take the leap? Thank you to everyone who helped with the interviews for this video. Their social media links are in the description. And you would help me a lot by subscribing to the channel and sharing this video so more people can see it. Hey Tams, did we ever solve that strange bug from Ernabal?
I honestly don't know what you're talking about or what happened.